Hello, am I audible? Hello. Hello.
Sir,
Hello,
ఒక 5
Dr.
minutes.
Muna. Am I audible?
సార్ ఒక 2 minutes వెయిట్ చేయండి సార్, ఇంకా సెషన్ స్టార్ట్ కాలేదు.
And greetings to all the online participants, and very warm wishes to Dr. Vijay Kumar Varadhi. He has consented to be the keynote speaker for this session. Before starting with the program, I would like to request Dr. H. Srinivas sir to come on to the dais. Dr. H. Srinivas sir. And I would like to request Dr. Pandarinath sir to come on to the dais. I request C. Rajeshwar sir to come on to the dais. And about Dr. Vijay Kumar Varadi sir. Dr. Vijay Kumar Varadi sir is a data scientist and he is also an economist, and he has a vast experience of 12 plus years in this field, this specialized field, econometrics and statistical modeling, operational research techniques to enable making policy options, and business research techniques to enable making policy options. This is expertise and specialization. So now I request Vijay Kumar Varadi sir to take over and start off with the technical session.
Hi, everyone, all the dignitaries. Thank you very much for inviting me for this session particularly. Yeah, it is a great, immense pleasure to be a part of this organization or the national seminar. Thank you very much. Today I will be discussing something about research methodology, tools and techniques. Maybe we can get into more details so that we can try to understand why data methodology, research methodology will have a greater influence not only in the academics but also in your career path as well. So let me start with my my session. Give me a moment. Let me share my screen. Yep. Please allow.
Sir, now you can share the screens.
Yeah, I can. I'm doing now. Hi, friends and colleagues. Thank you for a wonderful opportunity again. So myself, I'm Dr. Vijay. I've done my PhD in economics from the University of Hyderabad, and I've been working with the various capacities. I've worked with ISB, National Institute of Rural Development, ICRIAR, Indian Council for International Economic Relationship. Then I've moved to corporate world, where now I'm working as a lead data scientist for Hewlett Packard Enterprise, where I'm most of the cases I'm using my research tools and techniques to develop the methodology so that I can provide policy options and policy decision makings for my business and my academic research. I've been published almost 14 papers and working for published 4 books, and now I'm working two another books and 2 another papers as well. So having said this information, let us get into the topic that I would like to share today. The main focus of this study or today's course is research and its techniques and tools, right? So what do you mean by research? Why do you do our research? Is it necessarily or is it needed? So basically, research is an essential and powerful tool in leading man towards progress. So if you start your research methodology, It starts about when humans evolved in this universe. They have started building their capabilities, their understandings. They started thinking analytically. They started thinking systematic process so that they can innovate many things today's world, right? Without systematic research, there would have been very little progress. So today we will be discussing what is that systematic research that enables us to do impactful research, one, to do purposeful research, three, to do insightful research. One is impactful, purposeful, and impactful, right? So the purpose of the research, any research, is to gain familiarity with the phenomenon or to achieve a new insights into it. So basically, when you do a research, it is a combination of two words, re plus search. Re means again, search it. So whenever you have something already existing, if you want to develop, if you want to innovative, if you want to make things happen more easy and fast, maybe the research is the one of the best way to understand and to progress. To portray accurately the characteristics of particular individual, situation, or group, research can be done anywhere in human research or in any field of the world. Maybe it is automobiles industry or economics, commerce, sciences, or even anywhere in any part of this world. We need to have a research which can be fruitful, which helps us to portray accurately the characteristics of what you are pointing towards, right? Research is to determine the frequency with which something occurs or with which it is associated with something else. So, for example, today you are talking about something COVID or COVID versus economy, or if you are a commerce student, for example, how the balance sheet which impact on the entire financial statements. So basically, whenever you are working with, you need to deal with the frequency and you need to deal with association between the variables that you are dealing with, right? End of the day, purpose of the research is to test hypothesis of causal relationship between the variables that you are interested in. So today class, we will be talking about these few sections. Maybe you might really correlate what it can be helpful, right? So what are the characteristics of the research? It is directed toward a solution of a problem. For example, if you have a problem in economics, if you are an economic student or if you are an economic associate, so for example, why your foreign exchange reserves are increasing dramatically day by day, the other side, why your CAD is declining. So if you want to see the relationship and have a solution, maybe you need to do some analytical research. It requires expertise. Whenever you do research, you need to have some expertise, either in subject matter expertise we call it, because if you don't understand your subject matter, you may not be able to conduct any fruitful research. Then it emphasizes the development of generalizations, principles, theories that will be helpful predicting future occurrences. So whenever you do your subject matter expertise, it also provides generalizing inferences out of the given set of theories. Or it can also helpful to predict in future events, right? So that is one of the characteristics. Our research is based upon observable experience or empirical evidences. Whenever you do research, you tend to derive insights out of the research. You tend to give a maximum solution for any given problem that you are anticipated to do. So which means it always end with empirical evidences so that it can help you to derive insights for your research. Okay, it demands accurate observation and descriptions. It involves gathering new data for primary or first-hand sources or using existing data for the new purpose. So now I would like to introduce three concepts. There are primary data, secondary data, and tertiary data. The primary data which you can collect from the source, primary source, it may be survey data, it may be like conducting interviews or conducting first-hand information. Secondary, for example, if you are economic student or economic associate, you would have understand that you can get data from the RBI, you can get data from the Ministry of Finance, you can get data from the sources like which data is collected by the secondary sources, and you can utilize it for your analysis. And tertiary data, which is something is a new phenomena, which the sources like the servers or your mobile data, which itself is deriving data at very speed and fast, which we call it as a big data, and we are working towards to make it useful in many other times. Okay, then the research characterized again by carefully designed procedures that apply rigorous analysis. Maybe in our future slides you may be able to understand what it is. Then it involves quest for answers to unresolved or unsolved problems. So every economics problem or everywhere you may not be able to understand how to solve the particular problem. To understand the problem, you need to arrive at the hypothesis, which the hypothesis can give you a formulation and a derivation to make sure that you will have your own problem. You can solve your problem that is persisting for a long period of time, right? So any research to be conducted for the questing for answers to unsolved problems, then it strives to be objective and logical, applying every possible test to validate the procedures, employ the data collected, and the conclusions reached. So data, as I mentioned, data can be primary data, secondary data, tertiary data. If you are able to collect the data properly with a given objective, you may be able to understand and arrive at the proper solution. Okay, it should be carefully recorded and collected. Sometimes it requires courage. So, for example, if you go to long back, Archimedes' principle, the entire universe is not believing something physics can do some better solution for the world problem. But Archimedes and other Greek philosophers, they have a courage to do research and derive many insightful information for the generations that followed, right? So these are the must-have characteristics for any research. What are the types of research? Types of research based on, like it can be classified into 4 categories. One is nature of information, which may be quantitative or qualitative. Quantitative is dealing with the numbers. Quantitative is dealing with the qualifications. Categories. So when I say that quality data, it is, for example, if you are dealing with male, female, it is a quality data. If you convert them 0 or 1, it is a quantity data. So that is the difference, right? If you want to use the same classification and same values, especially if you are working with the primary survey data, you may need to do with the majority of the time with qualitative analytics, okay, analysis. Whereas if you are working with quantitative data, which means a summarized information, which is in the form of rows and columns, we call it as a quantitative data, which we work with majority of the time with the secondary data information, right? So the second part is on the basis of utility of content or nature of subject matter of research. So it can be a theoretical or it can be a empirical. For example, if you are working, if you are a theoretical, if you are developing a theoretical approach for a given set of problems, you may derive mathematical or logical derivations. When I say the logical derivation, it can be two methods. One is the deductive methodology, the other one is the inductive methodology, right? Inductive methodology, it starts from the problem and try to arrive at the solution. Whereas the deductive methodology, it starts with the hypothesis and arrive at the solution. So majority of the theoretical problems, you tend to look at the inductive methodologies, right? Whereas the empirical research, since you have data, you wanted to see the relationship between some variables. For example, if you're talking about what is the relationship between price and demand or price and supply, it is an inverse relationship. If you want to prove it empirically means with a quantitative significant values, maybe you need to do an empirical research, right? So you have to deal with what exactly that you are working, whether inductive methodology or deductive methodology. And third one is on the basis of approach research. It may be longitudinal or cross-sectional. Longitudinal is having one problem at a time. You wanted to look at the problem silos and solve it. Whereas cross-sectional, you may see the interlink between one problem might be associated with the other problems as well, right? One problem might be associated with the other problems. So it might be a cross-sectional problem, right? Then on the basis of methods of research, it may be philosophical research, it may be historical research, it may be survey-based research, or it may be again experimental research or case study research. So when you say the philosophical research, for example, if you want to prove something which is not existing today, it can be a philosophical research, right? When you are talking about the historical research is something that you wanted to give the evidence based. That is called the historical research. Something like, if you want to do something like survey based analysis, especially if you are a political scientist or if you are an economist or if you are even sociologist, you always tend to do surveys for the analysis purpose. And experimental analysis is research is based on two things. If you want to group people into two categories, then if you want to see them who is working better and who is not working better, this is called an experimental, right? Or if you want to see the drug analysis, which drug is doing or performing better than the other, that is also called the experimental research. Then something called the case study research. For example, if you are working with a particular case and you wanted to analyze within the framework of the case analysis, maybe that is a case study research, right? You need to, whenever you do some research, you need to classify where you stand and how to do your research further. So what is the research process? Research process can be clubbed into a few categories. You need to first formulate your research problem, what you wanted to do. You need to find out whether there is an existing literature, which means, is it an unique problem or is some else is already completed or done any other research similar. So any research is based on some existing research can give us more fruitful research or insights in the future, right? If you don't take existing research into the consideration, you may not be able to approach, you may not be able to provide best analysis for the future categories. Then you need to develop a research hypothesis. So what do you mean by hypothesis? Hypothesis is something that you have already assumed. For example, today, like, in the room there are 100 people. If I assume that all 100 people are learning at the same capacity, that is my assumption, right? In order to test whether they have learned or not learned, that's called hypothesis testing. So there is always possibility to test what you have assumed and how you can conduct research based on the hypothesis. Once you have completed your hypothesis, research hypothesis, then you need to create research design. Research design may be in the process, the entire process, what it can derive to from the problem statement to the solution, how it can be designed in each parameter. It is called the research methodology, right? Then determine the research design. Like, maybe you know the process, but you don't know what metrics, what methodology, or what qualitative or quantitative techniques that you need to apply on top of it. All right, that is called the determining the research design. Once you've done that, you need to collect the data. So for example, if your hypothesis is based on the survey data, you have to create a questionnaire and get the data from the questionnaire. If your hypothesis is on something on the secondary data, you need to collect data from the various sources, right? That is, you are collecting the research data. Once your research data is collected, then you have to execute the project and analyze the data. Then now, after getting all the data which is required, you have to test your hypothesis. Once you test your hypothesis on the sample and population, population is entire data, sample is the subset of the sample, right? So if you're using the entire population and testing on the sample, you can make it as a generalization of your results and interpret the way that the results is talking about. Once you have all these steps, then you have to prepare your report, which is a report maybe your MPhil thesis or PhD thesis or research program, research program, or conducting any CSIS or any other research, UGC research, or any conducting research. You have to finally prepare a report and present your results based on the experiment or based on the hypothesis that you have constructed. Okay, then what is the criteria for the good research? So there are a few criteria that you can think through. One is the purpose of the research should be clearly defined and common concepts to be used. If you want to make it usable for everybody else, you need to prepare your research in a clear dimension so that they can be easily understand what you are working with, right? Then the research procedures should be used, described the sufficient detail to permit another research. For example, if you are working, so my research on my PhD is what if external information flows into the stock market, right? That was my problem. But if I don't have simplifying it, my following researchers may never able to understand or may never able to improve my research for the future generations. So you need to provide the procedural design of your research, and the results that you are expecting should also provide or should also be connected with the objective that you are talking with, right? The researcher should report with complete frankness flaws in procedural design and estimate their effects upon the findings. So majority of the times, you may not able to provide the results as is. You tend to tweak as many times as you can, and you will result out only the few final findings. But basically, when you are doing a research, you might find majority of the concepts that are not built in a proper way. right? You need to understand those concepts. We call it as an anomalous, we call it as missing values, we call it as a procedural drifts, or we call it as a procedural changes at any point of time. You have to understand that, right? Then if you are able to make them as an important concept, maybe your following research might take up and do more fruitful research, right? The analysis of data should be sufficiently adequate to reveal its significance, and the methods of the analysis used should be appropriate. So for example, if you are working with survey data, and if you want to do some time series technique on it, it may not work with, right? Survey data should deal with something like, descriptive statistics and crosstabs and other simplistic methodology. But if you are working with a time series analysis like stock market or any other complicated techniques, maybe you need to be make sure what exactly the methodology which you are working with, right? Then greater confidence in the research is warranted. The researcher is experienced. Whatever you do, which the research which will impact on your future generations. So be careful by doing your research. Have a great confidence to provide the results which can lead a good reputation and integrity for your future researchers as well, right? Those are the main important concepts whenever you do some research analysis. Then what is the research design? Research design, you need to always focus on these categories. One, to minimize the expenditure. For example, if you want to do some survey analysis and you want to take it population like 130 crores people together and wanted to work on that, it may not be fruitful, right? So you need to make sure the sample size is correct and the sample is representing the population, and then the expenditure to conduct the research should be minimized as possible as you can. The second one is to facilitate the smooth scaling. Scaling means upscale, which means for example, if you are conducting research for 5 districts, if you want to conduct for 5 more districts, it should be able to smooth scale. It should not have any hindrances, right? So your research design should collect the relevant data and its techniques. So for example, if you are working wage impact and you are collecting data on family health surveys, so both will not relevant, right? So you may not lose the essence of the data. So in order to arrive at the proper data techniques and tools, you have to collect the relevant data and use the relevant techniques to populate the results, which is the way you want it to provide. So your research is designed to provide blueprint for your plans, right? You have a research methodology, you have a research techniques, you have a research problem, you have a research hypothesis. It should have a proper plan by end of the day before you start your research. You conduct your research further, right? Otherwise, you may end up with something else which may not be able to provide proper results, right? And then it should provide an overview to the other experts. So whenever you do your research, many people can also follow the same terminologies and conduct similar behavioral researches, right? It should provide a direction. Without direction, whatever you do, the research may not be fruitful, right? Then what are the characteristics of the good research design? It should have objectivity, it should have reliability, it should have validity, it should have generalizability, and it should have adequate information, and there are other features that we can proceed with, right? Then how do you derive a business research problem? So identification of the research problem can be based on a few questions or few process, right? One is determining the field of research in which a researcher is eager to do the research work. So whenever you enter into research, be careful that is also in line with your interest. If you are not if you are not having interest, you may not do any fruitful research. So majority of the times people tend to do research for the name's sake or for the certificate sake. So please don't do that. If you want to do a complete research for the sake of knowledge, for the sake of understanding of the problem, or for the sake of providing a solution for a given problem, so you should have I should have a interest towards the work, right? And the researcher should develop the mastery in the area, or it should be the field of his specialization. For example, I'm a monetary specialist or financial economist. If you ask me to do something on agricultural economist, maybe I may not be able to do justice for that, right? So in order to derive such kind of behaviors, understanding, you must be experienced, you must be expertised, you must be specialized in that part of the research that you want to conduct, right? And the third important category is researchers should review the research conducted in area to know the recent trend and studies are being conducted in the area. So don't do silos of your research. Do a proper conducting research survey, which means you need to do a lot more research before before you need to enter into a problem, right? That is called review of the literature, right? You can review majority of the studies across globe today. Being Google is updated, Google is available, you can get as much as possible data. So you can try to find out the uniqueness of your problem, so that you can give unique solution for any given problem that you are working with, right? So based on the review, researchers should consider the priority field of your study. So without conducting your review of literature, you may not be able to come to the objective of your study. Okay. The fifth one, you should draw an analogy and insight in identifying a problem, right? So if by having 100 papers you have reviewed and see there is no proper way that they have conducted research, and there is a big huge gap available, so you can get that gap, try to analyze, try to prepare a stepwise analysis, so that you will be able to understand, you will be able to arrive a proper analogy and insights for the given problem. And finally, you need to, as a researcher, you should pinpoint specific aspect of the problem which is to be investigated. Otherwise, it may not be able to fruitful, right? Then what are the source of the problem? You may get the problem from anywhere. Like, when your teacher or colleague is talking about something, you can see there is some gap existing with them, right? You can find out the solution. You can find out the problem and try to see the solution, right? You can see like the changing the environments, right? Like if you go back from 1950s, our economy is majorly depending on the agricultural sector, but now it is a tertiary sector, right? If you look at the socio-dynamics, if you look at the socio-demographics, if you look at the changes, the world that it is changing today, so all the social developments and technological changes can give you a new problems, can give you a new opportunities for the research, right? And you can record a previous research, such specialized sources which are available as a review of literature, and find out, make it as an encyclopedia and find out this research problem that you are looking at. And when you are reading textbooks or textbook assignments, special assignments, you can also see there is a gap in that, and you can provide that. So even in the like the schools like London School of Business, Delhi School of Economics, Madras School of Economics, even School of Hyderabad Economics, they tend to have a classroom discussions. With the discussions seminars like this, you may be able to identify various numerous problems to do research, to conduct a fruitful research as well. And the sixth important source is questioning attitude, right? If someone says price and demand is inversely demand, so do you accept it as it is, or do you want to question it and try to arrive at understand with your own data? So if you are questioning in the right way, in the right process, you may be able to do a lot more research process. That is called a questioning attitude. That is also called as a critical thinking. Then seventh part, the most practical source of the problem, to consult your supervisors or to consult your experts, experts in the field and experienced persons in the field, and you can create like more significant problems, so that you can emerge with a problem where you can solve the given set of problem, right? So that's how we can arrive at your business problems, research problems. So what are the abilities to become a good researcher, right? So till now, we tend to understand theoretically, okay, there are a few things that you need to conduct a research, but which capabilities help you to become a good researcher? There are analytical skills, there are interpersonal skills, there are abilities to execute, information processing, capacity for change. In analytical skills, you should have critical thinking. That's what questioning attitude, right? If you don't question, you will never able to think in a different approach. So question it and try to arrive at the solution based on your own data experiments. That is a critical thinking. The second one is the problem solving. So you know some problem, but you never attended because you don't want to make complex of that. So if you are a good researcher, if you want to become a good researcher, you try to solve the problem which someone is not solving. So that is one of the great idea to make you a good researcher. And you should be a decision maker. You should try to have decisions based on your research, based on your expertise, based on your understanding. You should create your own decision making process. And fourth important thing is research and inquiry. As we have seen, there are all the research techniques. How do you find a research problem? What are the research designs? How do you make an hypothesis? Everything can come and can include in this research and inquiry process. To do that, you need to have interpersonal skills. Communication is one of the important. If you know something, you need to communicate in a right manner to the person who is opposite to you. Until unless, you may not able to be a good researcher. Two, you need to be able to cope up, to collaborate with anybody else. You may be having this, different approaches, different think processes, but you should be able to collaborate as much as you can so that you will do a fruitful research. With your own expertise, with others' expertise, you can do much more work. Then you should have a leadership and responsibility capabilities, which can help you to solve the problem, like decision making and problem solving as much as possible, and it can be accountable and responsible as well. You will be responsible for every decision making that you tend to do. In the today's work or today's field, the researcher, like in the scientific research, you see they are capable of doing responsible research, right? So any research is doing a responsible research or accountable research, which might create a great influential to the to the field that we are contributing towards, right? You should be able to conflict management. So whenever you do research analysis, you need to deal with the many people, right? So every people may not agree with your statement. So you need to have something called conflict management, where you can convince them and smoothening your process to complete your research that you are intended to do. Then the third important category is the ability to execute, initiative and self-direction. For example, when you are working with a research problem, you have to initiate from the beginning, right? Nobody can help you. But if you are interested, there are many people out to help you, to come forward to help you. Even they can initiate to develop your research design and research methodology as well. If the initiative is not coming from you, you may not able to do anything else. Then two, the productivity. So, for example, if your researcher or if your guide or if your supervisor is asking to produce something by end of the week or end of the month, you should be able to do it. Unless you will lose your rigorance to conduct your research. That is what majority of the cases you will have some timelines between one point of the time to another point of time. For example, if you are doing research, PhD research, first year you will be able to conduct your review of literature. Second one, you will be able to develop, second year you will be able to develop your research design, and third year you will be able to develop your research process, like collaborating or communicating or preparing your surveys XYZ. And then you'll try to see each year your productivity will be increasing. End of the day, you will be able to submit your report on time. Then anytime, every time, if you are thinking, think as an innovative thinker. Think as a thinker that you are solving a critical problem of existing out there, right? So you should have this ability to execute them. Fourth one, information and processing, information of literacy that you are doing, like data, primary data, secondary data, tertiary data, whatever the data that you wanted, you can deal with, right? Media, it may be sending online surveys or offline surveys, or data from the buying data from RBI or some other resources, or whatever the media that you wanted to create a literacy programs, you can do that. And the digital citizenship, ICT operations and concepts, which also think through how innovative that your research can be conducted, right? And the fifth one, capacity for change. You should be creative and you should be innovative at any point of time. You should be adaptive for the learning, because whenever, like for example, researcher 1 and researcher 2 are doing the same kind of research, but their objective may be different, right? If you are able to compare both the research, so that you can adopt new methodologies or you can adopt new techniques for your analysis purpose. And your research should be a flexible, it can be like even scalable at any point of time. So when you are doing research, so to my knowledge, emotional intelligence or emotional quotient and your intelligent quotients is the key of success. If you are emotionally intelligent, if you are able to control your emotions, and if you are intelligent enough to process, ability to execute, then you can success. Else, you will end up with failure. Okay. Then, whenever you do some research methodology, it should be impactful, it should be insightful, it should be directional, it should be actionable, it should be results oriented of your organization, of your research, of your whatever you do in the analysis part. Right? And here I have given a few resources for your references. You can click any of this You will find the relevant material for today's study. You can see all the relevant materials. So you can go and find out research methods for economics or whatever the methodology, tools and techniques that you wanted to do, you can work with. Right. Let me take a pause. If you have any questions, then in a while I can also take you through how SPSS can be conducted, research, or how the data looks like. So I'll just spend some little more time on it as well. Let me take 1 or 2 minutes if you have any questions. Any questions?
Hello.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your enlightening the research, project preparations, characteristics, design. That everything you have covered very nicely, and the
Thank
benefit
you.
gone to the all respondents. Very nice, sir. Thank you very much for
Thank you, sir.
participating this technical session. Thank you very much from the BGR Government Degree College on behalf of the.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So can I take you to SPSS working session?
We didn't understand, sir. Can you repeat again?
So can I take you to SPSS working session for half an hour? So there is a tool called SPSS. SPSS is nothing but statistic processing tool for social sciences.
Sir, please continue, sir. You can explain about SPSS, sir. Sir, please.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, sir, you can continue.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Give me a moment. I'll just open my files and then. Can you see my SPSS?
What, sir?
Can you see my SPSS screen?
No, sir. Just we are able to see that folder.
Folder, right? Okay. Give me a moment.
Which consists of all the documents.
Yep. Give me a moment. I'll try to see.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now it was
Right. Right. Thank you. Hi, friends. Now this is the tool. A tool is mainly used for the social scientists, developed by the IBM. A tool name is called SPSS. SPSS is nothing but statistical processing tool for social scientists. Okay. So let us try to see what exactly is there. So we have a data here which consists of 61 variables, The variables Some of them are numeric, some of them are nominal. So here you can see there are measures you will see when it is a scale, majority of the time it is a numeric value. When there is something like this, it is a nominal value. Nominal value may be 1, 0 or any classical numbers or classifications. Okay, so in this case, this data is a pre-data sets available from the health sciences department. So I just use this data for our reference point. Okay, so whenever you try to use SPSS tool, SPSS is a user-friendly tool. For that case, you can start from the file, and you can see whatever the functionalities are there. In the file, you can either open a new data file or create syntax. Syntax is a code that you can write on, and output that you can see in a moment now. And open, similarly, you can open data or you can create your syntax on your own. So there is a process of save as or export the data on different formats. Majority of the cases that you tend to use Excel based data, either Excel. In Excel there are two data sets, one is XLS, another one is CSV. CSV we can also call it as a text data. So from SPSS you can export to any of these formats. Then you can rename your data sets. You can do other functionalities as well. So for us, the main functionalities will start from the data, transformation, analyze, and graphs. So what is the data is doing? So data, whenever you conduct a research, basically, you need to define what data is, how the data looks like, right? So there, all the definitions you can derive. You can set your measurements. You can copy data properties. You can define, if you are working with the time series data, you can define date and time. If you are doing multi-response sets, right? For example, what do you mean by multi-response? So you have a question, how many of you have learned today session? Okay, if that is the question, maybe answers like less than 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, greater than 15. If those are the multiple responses that I wanted to collect, so I have something called define multiple response sets, and I have something called validate the data that is getting collected is correct data or not. So whenever you are conducting research, majority of the times you may tend to have some duplicate cases. In this case, let us see if we have any duplicate cases here. Okay, so now you see there are no duplicates. There are no duplicate values available. But if I want to change the duplication process by ascending numbers, I could see some of them are duplicated. There are some couple of values might be duplicated. So these are the process where you can remove your duplicates. Then there is something called compare data sets. For example, you are conducting primary data surveys. One district survey, is it good with the another district survey? Maybe you can compare data sets by using a comparison data set functionality. So you can sort the cases. So for example, now if you look at this data, so data is not sorted, right? So you have 02, 01, 06, 07. But if you want to go ahead and sort your cases based on the ID numbers, then now you see the data is sorted in the form that you wanted to, like 01, 02, 03, 04, XYZ. So this is the easiest mechanism that you can deal with, and you can transpose data majority of the times. If you want to do analysis, you need to transpose the data, merging, and split the data. Like if you are testing hypothesis, sample versus your population, you need to split the data. So you can split the entire data into based on your groups, or your output based on the groups. So I can call it analyzing all cases do not create groups. So I can set the data, or I can create multiple splits of the information so that it can be useful for my analysis purpose. Then there is something called weight cases. So majority of the cases you need to do some weightages on particular variable. For example, if you're working on the tribal data, so tribal data, if you want to compare with the tribal with the urban values, so you need to give weightage to the tribals to cope up with the both the analysis. Hence, you need to give the weightage for them. So that's why weightage cases will be helpful. So then the other functionalities is compute variables, like count values, shift values. You can bin create your own dummy variables based on the, for example, if I want to create a dummy variable based on the category called sex, I can create, and on basis of the numbers, so I can create my entire values so that it can create a new parameter. It can create a new parameter and give me values based on my data, right? So that is the dummy variable creation that I can do. Visual binnings, for example, if I want to bin the data, so it looks like this way. So you can see how the data is populated here. Here, majority of the data is populated from 17 to 22 or 25. So when you look at the other data sources, you can find there are some outliers associated with that, right? Similarly, you can optimally binning the process. You can create ranks over there, and you can create time series with a given data time, date and time available. Okay, and there are replacing missing values. You need to do a lot of missing value methodologies. So for example, if you are wanted to replace values, so there are many techniques that are available with the mean, nearby points, medians, linear interpolation, or linear trend at point. So whenever there is a missing data available, you can use any one of these methods. These methods can be helpful. We call it as a data cleaning process or data wrangling process. Once you have a proper data set is available, then you tend to deal with something called analyze data, right? In the analyzed data, if you see descriptive statistics, so now I want to create what are the frequencies for each and every variable. I just have to select all and make them to the variable section. And if I wanted to see the central tendency measures or percentile measures or dispersion, that is variance measures, I can select all of them, then say continue, then say okay. You can see the results over here. You can see all the results that are come up here, right? So you can, this is the simple frequency statistics that is available, right? So you have ID number, there are no missing values. You have all the mean, which is average numbers, median, mode, standard deviation is nothing but your dispersion of the data. And you have variance. Variance again, how one variable is is varying from your mean, and range is nothing but minimum and maximum, and all the percentile values that you can see over here. Similarly, you can have each variable. So for example, if I want to see the data, so for example here, sex is nothing but one is for male, the two is for female. So how many people are there in this research? 92%, 92 people are males and 214 people are females, which is about 30%, 30% of the males and 69% of the females. So whenever you wanted to have a simple analysis or simple understanding of your data, your analyze table tab and descriptive statistics will really helpful, right? So you can have any kind of information. And similarly, if you wanted to do something called cross tabulations or explorations, you can see, you can explore the values labeled by something like this, and you can just see the behavior and how the data is looks like, right? So all these techniques is helpful to conduct your research. After you are conducting research, let me take you back here. After conducting research, you are analyzing data, hypothesis testing, generalization and interpretation, and preparing of the report or presentation of the result. SPSS will be a good one. Okay, you can try to understand the way that you wanted to see the data, and you can also prepare the data that is providing the actionable insights, right? So again, if you go back here, for example, if you want to do some ratios, you can always do ratios. Yes, like sorry, I can see the income month versus income per week by sex. Okay, so I can see the values, how they are changing over a period of time, right? So by using this kind of test analysis, you may be able to come to certain conclusions. Those we call it as an observations. All observations will help you to find out the formula, to answer the objective that you are intended to do, right? So in the analysis section, you can also do some cross tabulations here, which is majority of our researchers will be doing time series, like cross tabulations. So with this cross tabulations, you see sex 1 having income range like 0, 32, 1 with 53, 99, which is again kind of a missing value or no value. So majorly you can focus on 1, 0 and 1. All right. So these kind of cross tabulations might really help us to find out how the data is distributed among the various columns or various rows. And then if you want to do some advanced techniques, there are techniques called Bayesian statistics, where you tend to do almost all your hypothesis testings here. So normal distribution, binomial distributions. So once you have a data, you tend to see how data is distributed within the ranges and how it is varianced and what is the standard deviation within that. And you can also go with correlations. If you want to do a regression analysis, here there are set of regression techniques like linear techniques, non-linear, and weighted regression methodologies. And there is something called log linear models, neural network models. So majority of our social scientists, we may deal with regression methods, most probably linear methods, curve estimations, and logistics, binary logistic means when you have a value either 0 or 1 or yes or no. Multinomial logistics, if you have more than 3 classifications. Ordinal probit analysis, probability analysis that you wanted to conduct, you can do probit analysis. On nonlinear estimations, if it is the data is purely nonlinear in nature, maybe you can do with a nonlinear analysis part. And you can also do some quantile regressions as well. And then we also do, as a day, some social scientists, we also do something called scaling, reliability analysis, or multidimensional analysis. We also do survival analysis, and we will also do something called multi-response variable analysis as well. So majority of the cases, we deal with the descriptive statistics. We will deal with the Bayesian statistics, which all your probabilities, which will be used for your hypothesis testing, and comparing tables, which also used for the statistics hypothesis testing, and then correlations also we can use, and then regression is one of the best tools that you can utilize for your analysis purpose. Yep, I think I'm done with. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving this information to do the project as a successful manner. And thank you. And now we are going to end the session with your words. Thank you.
Thank you.